And we decided we were going to do a 2 day like tent essentially at this event, and we had to or I had to come up with programming and activities and all of these things. And then the weekend of this event, it was like raining super hard. We were in a field. It got
All right, everyone. Welcome to I Am Bored. This is AIGA DC's podcast where we discuss everything going on in the world of our current and former board members. I'm Nabi Bilal, the current communications director of AIGA DC, or co-communications director. And today I'm joined with Ariana Rodriguez-Gitler. Hello, Ariana. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
good. Thank you. It's so nice to be part of this.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. For people who don't know you and know about your service to the design community through AIGA, can you introduce yourself and tell people about your relationship with AIGA DC?
Sure, yeah. So Nabi and I actually started on the board at the same time, though I am no longer on the board. So I think that was around 2021.
Yeah.
I served for 3 years on the board. 2 years were with DC Design Week, so as the deputy and then as the executive director. And then my third year on the board, I was the membership and volunteer chair, where I was keeping track of our membership numbers for the board, coordinating a little bit with national, and then also helping connect anyone who was interested in volunteering with all of the different programming folks that we have on the board to make sure that every event from like a small meetup to larger things like DC Design Week had the community volunteers that are needed to make those things happen. And before that, I spent 3 years on the committee for DC Design Week before I became part of the board. So as you can tell, I was very connected to DC Design Week. I think that was like 5 years total of just kind of first
Wow.
some programming and then some project management and then kind of more of the leadership of that as well.
Yeah, for people who don't know, DC Design Week is a massive effort. So the fact that you kind of went from the committee to the chair of it means you know the ins and outs. And I think while you were here, we were doing like 40 events in the week versus where we've scaled down to since.
Yeah, and yeah, when I started, it was definitely one of the largest number of events I think that we'd been doing, partially because we had a lot of the like lunch and learn like studio tours.
Hmm.
So that definitely added to the number, but there were definitely probably like at least 40 events I would say during the week. And then I did see a whole kind of evolution of DC Design Week, I would say. Again, from that like peak of so many events to getting into the pandemic and our first like completely virtual year, which we had to adapt and figure out how to build community and really make engaging programming that way, as well as like DC Design Week is both about learning, but also doing that community connection piece. So like how we try to figure out how to do that in the middle of the pandemic when everything was on Zoom, and then the following 2 years, which were my last 2 years doing it, was like coming out of that, still sometimes doing some Zoom events,
Hmm.
figuring out the parameters of how to like keep people safe still while we were not fully out of things, and then kind of rebuilding in person connection after so long of being apart. So certainly have seen the evolution, I think, and you mentioned with the size of events too. It certainly has also gotten for the sustainability of the folks planning this and making sure that this continues. It certainly has also reduced the number of events that are in DC Design Week to make sure that they're quality events and manageable to pull off with the team doing it, because it can be a lot of work for sure.
Yes, I could hear it in your I could hear it in your retelling of things.
Yeah,
So just to back up a little bit,
sure.
what led you to join the AIGADC community to begin with?
Yeah, well, it's a couple different things. My sister is actually also a graphic designer, so she was more familiar with AIGA, and then the local chapter in DC, than I was when I first moved back to this area, after college. And so I would go to a couple events and be plugged in from there. But then the real kind of turnaround for me is, I always joke that I was tricked into it by one of the former presidents of AIGA DC. I was working with Kim Arias at
Hmm.
Pew Research Center, and I had gone that year to um, one of the DC Design Week events and was just casually giving her feedback without knowing that she was the president. And then she kind of quickly turned around and was like, "Great, like you seem really interested in how this event went and like how to make it better. Do you want to be part of the committee for that?" And so I jokingly say she tricked me, but
Yeah.
it was a great like way to kind of be invited in and to have someone recognize that like my feedback could help improve things in the future. So that's kind of what started it all, and then I spent 5 years with Design Week.
Yeah, it's funny. My joke to myself is anytime you get recruited to AIGA and you end up here for a number of years, you're just kind of like, who convinced me to do this work for free? Who thought that it would be a good idea for me to just pour my heart and soul into something for absolutely no money whatsoever? Just just giving away all my goodwill. Um,
And yet you're still here so many years later, right? I think there's so
yeah,
many
yeah,
amazing perks, and like there's reasons why we stay
yeah.
around for so long. For me, like at this point, so much of my community, even though I'm no longer part of the board and not on a committee, so much of my community are folks that I met doing stuff
Hmm.
with either DC Design Week or AIGADC as a whole, and so many of my like dearest friends, and I think the people are for sure what kept me around year
For
after
sure.
year. And then also with Design Week, you're doing so many events in the community. So even just that opportunity to like meet other creatives and other
Yeah.
agencies or nonprofits or whoever we kind of got to partner with us, I think was also so valuable for me. And it's a big reason why I would keep coming back year after year.
Yeah, and I kind of find when once you really understand what it means to be part of a board like AIGA DC, you really get to see how if you come to it with a certain mindset, you get to sort of imprint, something you see as a need for the design community that maybe another, other board members, they've got their own focus, but you can come in with a whole nother focus. It's not just, hey, get in line in formation and do this thing. It's really like a chance to have impact in the design community in a way that maybe hasn't been explored before.
For sure. And I think that's, again, from the perspective of DC Design Week, why that evolution that I've seen also was happening, right? Because every new person who was leading would take it in a new direction based on what they saw as the current need and the direction to head in with that. So in that way, it's also been really cool to just to see both for Design Week and for AIGA DC as a whole, like how much gets shifted and changes based on what the community needs and what the folks on the board are kind of focusing on at that time.
Right, right. And now you're also an artist and an entrepreneur who ventured into your entrepreneurship as you were transitioning off of the board too. So can you tell us in the community more about what you do outside of the board and kind of how that, started?
Sure, yeah. So you're right. I think during my last year on the board was when I started to make that transition, or last two years, I would say, I started to make that transition to doing my own kind of business as a consultant for mostly nonprofits, but other mission driven organizations and small businesses. And that was certainly a journey.
Hmm.
I have a background in graphic design as and related to journalism and communication. I started my career as an intern at PBS and was doing some marketing work before that kind of pivoted into more digital production, still doing some graphic design, but really more focused on just like the complete package of content that needs to be created in order to have a website that's communicating well
Yeah.
in social media. And so my career kind of continued to pivot along those lines of doing more of that digital production, working with designers and developers to create content, interactives, social media content, etc. So by the time I was making that pivot, I knew that I um, had already enjoyed a bunch of different things in my career, but wanted to continue to explore um, how to uh, have more variety, I guess, on a day to day, where I could be doing some graphic design work, but I could also be doing some of that content management,
Yeah.
content production, project management. And so I think, along with a lot of soul searching in the process of quitting kind of the last full time job that I had and figuring out what was next for me, that idea of variety, flexibility, curiosity and excitement is what helped me decide that being a consultant was a good idea for me, and has also kind of guided my work in different projects. So I've done everything from helping kind of rebrand and create some marketing materials for like another small consultant who is working on their own for museums and nonprofits, to helping build websites out for different organizations and do project management support for businesses and organizations. So it's giving me a really good opportunity to play with all my different skill sets and my interests and keep things fresh on a day to day.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned it's been a journey. So, what are some triumphs, maybe even some hidden challenges that you've experienced, in your along your journey, and what's sort of come out of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I first made the pivot to work for myself, I was trying to keep the mindset of like, you've worked at that point, I think maybe 7 years in uh, kind of the traditional workspace for our different organizations.
Mhm.
You can always go back to it if you need to, but like try it out and see what happens. So the fact that now, almost 4 years, I believe, later, my business has kind of grown in the number of clients that I work with, the amount of projects and income that's coming in. I think that's just like such a huge win for me because
Yeah,
even today, you never know, the climate changes every couple of weeks, with everything
always.
going on. But so there's still that idea of like, if things don't work out, there's always going back to other kind of roles, more traditional roles. But the fact that it's been successful so far and I'm still able to do the things that I enjoy, with the types of clients that I enjoy, I think is a huge win for me. And then the other piece I know you mentioned before, that I'm a mixed media artist.
Hmm.
So being able to balance in doing art as well has been a really incredible. I've been in over, I think, 8 shows across the DMV with some of my art pieces. I've been selling my art. I have like print versions of some of my pieces. I teach collage classes around the area as well, and so being able to balance again those things that might be a little bit more uh, higher income bringing in versus like some of my more passion projects with
Yeah.
art has really been incredible as well.
Yeah, and for those who haven't seen her work, her collage work is incredible, and she uses it in so many different ways. I think I've gotten a couple of holiday cards from you, and there's such a nice gift to get because you know that they are handmade, that they're thought out. You have to think about texture, you have to think about composition, all those types of things. So, we'll make sure that we plug your website and your Instagram, in the description as well as before we hop off of this interview. But speaking of that, obviously to be a creative, to be an artist, you have to draw inspiration and motivation from different places. One thing I like to ask people is what's a book or a movie that's had a big impact on you from a standpoint of that type of inspiration, motivation?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I feel like I'm getting inspiration from so many places, like you mentioned,
Hmm.
and that kind of helps with this kind of mixed media approach of mine, where it is kind of like this mashup of all the things that I'm inspired by and interested in. Um, I think. recently I've been also trying to figure out, and this aligns with my business work as well as my artwork, how to really use my skills for kind of like ideas and causes that I really am passionate about. So I think there's a book called um, Artivism, or the Art of Activism. I can
Well,
share
yeah,
the let me look it up really quick.
yeah. Once you get it, we can put it in the description. Um,
But yeah, that book I think is a really interesting idea for like how to use your like artistic craft skills to communicate a message or support different causes in different ways. And I think I'm still figuring out the best ways to do that, but I think that kind of guides again both my business and my art work, where I want to make sure, in addition to financial success and paying the bills,
mhm.
that like I feel aligned with the type of work that I'm doing.
Yeah, and I don't want to miss this question because I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, but how and why did collage become like your medium of choice?
That is such a good question. Yeah. I had been doing collage since I was in like high school at least. Just I think somewhere along the line I knew I wanted to work in communication. At some point I thought I would be a magazine editor, so I was collecting a lot
Mhm.
of magazines and then I would just use them to collage like notebooks and things for class. So it's something that I've always kind of played around with. At that point it was definitely more like that mood board style. But then during the pandemic, when we were all at home, I was spending time at the house I grew up in with my mom, and I had a huge collection of magazines still, from back in high school and when I was collecting them. So I just kind of brought them out, and you mentioned that you've received some greeting cards from me. I was making
Yeah.
like postcards and greeting cards and sending them out to friends, and slowly that just started to evolve into a style that I've been working on, where it's more like creating an image out of those pieces versus like that mood board style. And I think I resonate with that style, especially for myself, where like I have so many very different identities that are part of who I am from my background, and um the way that I would like identify myself in different ways. And so I think that I am in my own way a collage of different things, and so being able to create in that way, as well, as amazing, just to like take these disparate pieces and see a new something new coming out of that, is kind of that's the approach that I take. And I love doing that. And it's also, I teach that in the collage classes that I do. And I think for a lot of people, it is a different way of thinking about collage and thinking about art.
Mhm.
So it's really fun to get to share that with other people as well.
Yeah, I mean our lives are like a collage, and you're right. You know, if you think about it, we're pieces that make up a whole of, something.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of that, what experience would you say has had a profound effect on your life and just sort of like your outlook on things?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like recently, I feel like there's been so many big changes for me in terms
Hmm.
of career and just like what I'm prioritizing in my life. And um, I would say that losing my dad during the early days of the pandemic,
Hmm.
um, did have a huge effect on my life and where I am now. He was battling cancer for a while, and then literally like the Friday before everyone was told to stay home from because of COVID, he passed. And so it was like personal family grief mixed with collective grief, and like so much that I was just processing at once. And I think it led me to question how I was spending my time, like what was
Yeah.
the point of my life, what I wanted to achieve, I guess, is another way of saying it. And so that took me on again on this journey of exploring what I was doing on the day to day, professionally, artistically, all of those things. So I think I'm a huge advocate for taking a little bit of time to
Hmm.
figure things out. I did have about 9, 10 months where I quit my former, like my last full-time job and then started doing my own business.
Yeah.
I was doing DC Design Week in that time, so I definitely was still keeping busy, but it was
Yeah.
also a time where I was reading a lot of books and exploring and trying to figure out what was important to me and what that would mean for a professional life beyond what I had been previously doing.
Yeah. And my condolences. I mean, I say it because grief is people don't know it until they go through it, but deep grief is like the depths of the ocean. And I'm already like tearing up because I have such a profound sensitivity to that and the fact that you have to be strong and make your way back up to some type of surface, however long you could stay up there. It's tough. It's very tough.
For sure. Yeah, and I think you're so right. Like you don't know until you have to experience it. And like I'd experienced losses for sure throughout my life, but it was certainly different when it was so close to
Yeah.
home. And also, and again, in this moment of like huge collective grief of society and trying to figure out like, yeah, like how to
Yeah.
continue and to move
How do you
on
go
and
forward?
find
Yeah.
purpose. Yeah. And I think that's also probably why I enjoyed doing my art so much because it was an outlet and it was a way to connect with
Mhm.
people. Um, so yeah, like I am certainly I'm not a fake positivity. Like there's a reason why everything happens, but I do feel grateful that like in such a tough and dark moment, it did
Mhm.
help me kind of reevaluate my own life and get
Yeah.
me to a place where I feel certainly more free and happy with the choices I've been making in the last couple of years. So
Yeah.
definitely finding the little slice of silver lining on something that
Absolutely.
was really tough.
Absolutely. And I commend you on that. So I guess kind of switching topics a bit, but kind of still thinking about the inspiration side. Who's someone within the design or creative field that you admire or that, does inspire you?
Yeah, I think one of the kind of graphic designer artist that I do get some inspiration from is Lisa Congdon, I think is how you say her name.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love her illustration work. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got some beautiful illustration work, but she's also kind of created a business around that in terms of writing books and doing print pieces and other art. And then also within her art, she is actively kind of supporting the causes that she cares about. She
Yeah.
has books about like I think I probably miss remembering the total concept, but like I think there's one about queer joy and like there's one about finding your voice in art, and so I just feel like the messages she's able to send beyond just like creating art are really powerful, and also I just like love pattern and color and all of that.
Yeah.
So I'm very inspired by her work.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I'm really discovering the power of pattern within art. I mean, not every artist is a pattern maker, but there is something very powerful in designing pattern and how that can kind of translate from one piece of your work to the next piece and begin to create more or less like a signature of sorts to give you a unique presence in the space, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like when you are, if you think about it too much, it's kind of tough because you're like, how, what do I do? What is the pattern?
Right.
What defines me? But it's kind of
Right,
cool to
right.
like do enough work that it starts to emerge on its own, I think.
Yeah.
To the point
Hmm.
where with a lot of my art, like, a lot of close friends will be like, oh, that's so your style. Like they already kind of know that it's the colors that I'm using and the way that I put pieces together that even as I've evolved my artistic style, like they can still see that kind of signature, like you said,
Yeah,
throughout the evolution of my work.
absolutely. Kind of switching back to AIGA for a bit. What are you most proud of during your time with AIGA DC? Like, what sticks out to you the most as just like emblazoned in your mind for better or worse?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, my memories of AIGA DC will forever be tied to DC Design Week and also just like um, the creativity and problem solving and resiliency that you need to pull off such large events.
Yeah.
the first year that I did it, I was doing the closing event, I think. That was part of Crafty Bastards, which is like this art craft festival that happens, I think, still every year. And we decided we were going to do a 2 day like tent essentially at this event, and we had to like, or I had to come up with programming and activities and all of these things. And then the weekend of this event, it was like raining super hard. We were in a
Mm.
field. It got muddy.
Oh
We
my
were
God.
like, how do we make this work? You know, we had people coming in bringing rugs and what's that, like the fake turf to like try to make the mud less bad so that people would come in and like spend time with us and celebrate. And so that to me is kind of like the metaphor of the rest of my experience, where like something's going to happen and you just have to figure it out. But
Exactly.
as stressful as that was, there was like a community of people who were all pitching in, um, either bringing stuff or stopping by, or who were already volunteering to like make sure what we needed to happen happened, and that there is something for our community to enjoy. So I think, yeah, my whole experience is with that. And I think being able to learn and produce these events at a pretty high quality scale, I think has been something I'm really
Yeah.
proud of. And it's something that like years later still I feel like I can help plan any sort of event because I was trained by the best, like the folks who were leading when I was, you know, still part of the committee. Like they were organized and they had their planners, and
Yeah.
they had all these tools. Liz Rose Camella is one of the people who was, I think she was leading DC Design Week at the time, and like, yeah, just like so organized. And I just remember all the folders and all the tools we were using. And we would get feedback from our partners all the time too, that maybe they'd done events with other people in the past, but this was the most organized and like the best kind of put together experience from them as someone engaging in one of those events. So yeah, I think I just learned so much that I can like take and use into the future, and just know that I have been trained how to put on a really good event, that, you know, you can plan for anything that might go wrong, and also just make sure that it's like a valuable experience for the people showing up.
That's awesome. Would you say that that's one of the biggest places that AIGA DC helped you grow professionally? Um, and if so, like, how has it helped you grow personally?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, yes, professionally, that was huge. It both in the learning how to plan an event, but I think as I moved up in leadership for DC Design Week, it was also really good experience for like having to speak with people and do like cold outreach and try to talk to different organizations and venues and community partners and see if they were interested in doing something with me, which I think was great professional experience, especially now that I'm a consultant and doing my own thing. Like I don't feel, I think, some of that stress or nerves that I probably would have if I didn't do that for years, of just like, sometimes you do just need to email someone or stop by a shop and see what you can do there.
Yeah,
It definitely helped me, again, just like having connections with folks in the community. um and yeah, I mean, that's both, I guess, professional and personal growth, of just having more confidence in moving through the world, I guess, and like in through a community, and um just getting things done.
yeah. I mean, and yours was such a atypical DC Design Week given what was going on with COVID, um, just things happening, geopolitically, socially. Um, I think about that often, and I wonder, as somebody who is like really going run the gamut of planning events, is there any such thing as no stress when it comes to planning an event? Like it seems like there's no way you can't, even if you know what you're doing, there's just no way that you can't. And I mean, I remember I think the second year you were deputy, I mean, not deputy, but chair of the DC Design Week, you were also dealing with health issues as well too. So it was, the stress of life and these things. It just seems like, is there no such thing as a stress-free event planning, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be stress. They're 100% right. I think um, the preparation of having done so many events now is more so um, just being a little bit more aware of what you can try to anticipate. There's, like you said, there's always going to be a little bit of like nerves and stress. Like, are folks going to follow through and show up and do all the things that you need?
Hmm.
Is some random thing going to disrupt the plan? But it certainly has helped to have the experience of just doing so many events of like how do you try as much as you can to be at least a little bit prepared for something needs to be pivoted and changed.
For sure, for sure. And as we reach the end of this interview, how can people keep up with you? What platforms are you on? What's your website? Give people some more insight into you.
Sure, yeah. My website is arianarg.com, so ARIANARG.com. And then I am on Instagram at made by Ariana RG. So yeah, please find me, follow me, reach out. I love meeting new folks. Like I said, I do classes and workshops, so always love seeing new faces at those. And I'm also always looking for new ways to kind of support the community. So if anyone has ideas and wants to pitch them and work through that, I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely, and we'll make sure we plug that in the video description. Last question. I think this is my last, depending on what you say here. Um, who would you nominate to do an I Am Bored episode, past or present board member?
That is a great question. I feel like um, Liz Rose, who I mentioned earlier, would be such a great person to speak to. She, again, did so much of that kind of structure building for DC Design Week back in the day, and then had been on the board before that, and I think moved up to being the vice president at one point. Has been through many of the roles, but then also professionally, like ran her own agency, was running her own agency, and yeah, it was like super plugged into the DC area when she was here. And now she's off having amazing adventures in an RV with her sister, like across the US. So she's just an amazing person, but also just like an interesting story of being part of the community, but also just like a creative soul who's finding her own path now too.
Yeah, and I've met her a couple of times. I feel like she's kind of a mythical figure in that way, where every time I knew, like, you reminded me she's traveling the country, in an RV, but she's also done this great work here at like there's, I think when people do work with AIGADC or provide service through AIGADC, like, you leave a legacy. And I mean, that's the reason why I wanted to do this series, is because there's so many stories of people really putting their heart and soul into ensuring that there's resources for the design community and events and things like that to connect people. But, there's a lot given for what's received. And, this is meant to pay homage to the legacy that you leave. You have a legacy. Um, People who have served on this board and are, serving on this board, are have a legacy and are building a legacy. And it's important to view it as such, in my opinion.
For sure. And yeah, like I said before, the people are why I kept coming back. Like both in that they were incredible people that you want to hang out with, like outside of AIGADC stuff, but also in terms of the passion and the skill and the knowledge that everyone's bringing from their own backgrounds. I think sometimes because AIGA used to like focus specifically on the word design in the acronym, it felt like everyone had the same kind of background. But as the industry has grown and changed over time to include more like digital, web based experience design, like all of those things, and as the kind of AIGADC has open the doors more to creative folks generally. It's really amazing to see specifically the people on the board and their different backgrounds, whether that's more writing or video or whatever it might be, and getting to learn from everybody, both about like what other in like jobs and pockets of the industry exist, but also like the specific skill sets that they bring and their interests. So yeah, the people are just super. All the people that I met have been so worth it, and like you said, they're so passionate about giving back to the community, and that becomes part of the myth and the legacy of all the folks who've come before. And yeah, I'm just so lucky to have worked with such incredible people.
Well, like I say as of today, I guess, once bored, always bored. So Ariana, I hope you stay bored one way or another. And I thank you for taking time out to do this interview.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Until next time.